Welcome to Module 1 of the MELI Unit's Program Learning course. In this module, we will introduce you to key definitions and foundational concepts important to learning, including a review of the learning cycle and recommendations for designing learning-focused meetings. Let's get started. What exactly do we mean by learning? Learning is the continuous process that utilizes different sources of data to inform project planning and implementation. We generally distinguish between two different types of learning. The first is Big L learning, which is strategic organization-wide learning that pulls data from a wide variety of sources to inform broad, cross-cutting, mission-related, or operational questions. The second is Little L learning, which is using data to inform decision-making related to specific program activities. In this module, we're going to focus on using data to inform decision-making. This takes place as part of the program learning cycle. Let's start with a quick recap of what the cycle looks like. The basic program cycle involves a continuous feedback loop between program planning and design and implementation, with learning occurring at each stage in the process. Following program implementation, we ask ourselves, where did we succeed? Where did we encounter challenges? We then use that information during program planning and design. During this stage of the cycle, we ask ourselves, how can we leverage our successes? How can we improve upon our challenges? This allows us to improve how we implement the program for future cohorts, and the process repeats. You'll see at the bottom of the cycle that monitoring and evaluation activities occur at all stages, providing us with data for our learning efforts. We are now going to focus on learning within the program cycle. There are 3 times when teams may come together to make sense of data and make decisions about how to use evidence to improve programming. The first is data-based, which occurs when specific data activities have been completed. For example, your team may come together at the conclusion of an evaluation or post-program survey to review results. The second is decision-based, which occurs when specific decisions regarding programming or organizational direction need to be made. For example, when a program's grant period of performance is coming to an end, you may need to decide if it should be renewed. The third is cadence-based, which occurs on a predetermined recurring timeline. For example, you may decide to convene your team quarterly or semi-annually. When designing learning-focused meetings, there are several principles to keep in mind. First, you'll want to identify relevant data. When your intent is to use data for learning, you'll need to identify the key data points that will inform your decision-making. Next, define the purpose, goal, or outcome of the meeting and its objectives. Meetings may have multiple objectives, and it is important to define what they are before you get into the details of planning. Objectives could include sharing information, practices, innovations, and adaptations, problem solving, strengthening capacity or addressing knowledge gaps, finding and facilitating areas of collaboration, efficiencies, or co-creation, and collective decision-making. You will also want to consider forward planning or programming when designing your meeting. Once objectives have been defined and you have an understanding of how you'll use the meeting outcomes, start to think about what comes after the meeting. What follow-up meetings might be needed? Who needs to be included? Who will manage action items that might arise? Next, think about active participation and what each attendee brings to the conversation. Who needs to be in the room to accomplish the articulated objectives? Choose a meeting format. Your meeting format should fit your stated objectives, audience, and time available. There are a variety of formats and facilitation techniques to help engage participants, encourage learning, and increase effective use of time. Have a dedicated facilitator. This is a designated individual who will help design and lead the meeting. A dedicated facilitator should lead participants to the desired objectives of the meeting, remain impartial, create the agenda in collaboration with the organizer, and communicate the agenda ahead of the meeting. clarify resource expectations early in the process when communicating with key stakeholders. It is helpful to consider logistics during the planning phase to ensure resources are available to meet meeting objectives. This may include the venue, travel, food, materials, and approvals. Finally, as the planning process unfolds, define and communicate roles. Roles and responsibilities will vary depending on the meeting objectives and format. Some examples may include senior leadership, who may help set expectations, explain the context of the meeting, and define the use of outcomes. Facilitators are those responsible for agenda setting and meeting management. Note takers, who may not only take notes, but also help compile reports and other meeting deliverables. And finally, a logistics coordinator, who may take the lead on organizing aspects such as the venue and participant communications. That's all for our module on internal decision making. When you're ready, you can head back to the training overview and move on to Module 2 on learning agendas.